Greetings. Hakola. Lila no chicha waikta. Wamblina mohahia. Pilamaye. For all those of you who don't speak American, I said, I'm proud to be here. It's an honor to talk to you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much. That's Pilamaye. Where'd Larry go? That's all I was going to say for you. Well, the code talking was merely the Indian language. Of course, we had to make up some words because we didn't have no submarines. We didn't have no fighter planes or no bomber planes. Or we didn't have any ships and submarines and one thing and another. We had horses and dogs and buffalo. At any rate, I speak all 4 dialects of my language. And I also speak 13 other different Indian languages. I have to fill this in because of the physical training that was presented for the Scouts and Raiders. How many of you heard of Scouts and Raiders? There was only 1,200 of us. I'll tell you, when I went into boot camp, I was there 3 weeks, just long enough to get my shots. We fell out to muster on a cold January, the last of January in 1942. And this drill instructor, this chief petty officer, says, I got a name here. LeBeau? He said. I said, that's LeBeau. He said, don't interpret. I said, that's what I do best. He said, we don't have no comedians here. Fall out. He said, you just volunteered, he said, for a new combat team that we're putting together. So I fell out and I walked to where he pointed. And a friend of mine, we joined together. He laughed. This drill instructor said, you think that's funny? He said, you just volunteered. We left there, went to Little Creek, Virginia. It was a combination of the Army and the Navy. And we trained there. The Rangers put us through the training. And we developed a system to train you physically and mentally and whatever else they could pull out of you. They told us that any time they put up a bell, any time that you feel you can't make it, go ring that bell and we'll let you out. There was quite a few. There was 136 of us started in this first company. I was one of the first 10, and then they kept coming. So our company was 136 people. So The last one, you're looking at him. The friend of mine that he lasted till 2 years ago. He died in Fort Smith, Arkansas. But we left there and went to North Africa. We was hurriedly trained. That's what the paper said anyway. And we got down there, and we was the first invasion that the United States made on another country. We went in to make the way for 200,000 troops that was on a transport laying out of they called it Wadi Sabu. It was a stream that went up by Fort La Tete, which is Kinra now in Morocco. But that was the French colony, and the French was defending it, the Vichy French. That was after Hitler took over France, and these people was loyal to him, and they was defending this airport that the United States wanted. So we had to go in there and cut the cables. Across this river, they strung 1.5 inch cable, steel cable, and tied the boats to it, and then they had the boat, the small boats was all in line tied to this cable, and they was holding up the anti-shipping net. They wanted that moved. We moved it, but not before the first night we got in this wooden Higgins boat. There were 17 of us. I don't know why we needed so many. After that, there was only 4 or 5 of us that went in on the beachhead. But we got into the mouth of the river, and those waves hit us. It just got a ground swell, and they just took that Higgins boat and shot it up there. And here the lights come on, and the guns started popping, and we made back for where the ground swell had just kicked us out. See, we made it. But the next night we loaded up. This time we only took 12 personnel. And we got there, and this other fellow and I set the explosives, got the cable. But there was another cable, an alarm cable, stretched up further on up. We had to take that out. And when we took that out, all hell broke loose. But we made it back. We got through the mouth of the river and back to the transport laying out there. And we found not one personnel was hit. But there was about, I think there was 18 holes they found in that wooden hull. But we were shipping water too, and a lot of us was bailing, but we made it back. Then we came back to the United States after that, after we got the troops through, and we got at Fort Pierce, Florida. It was a deserted casino, and that's where we started our training, from this deserted casino. Then they start bringing the UDTs, the underwater demolition teams, in so that we could train them. And I was there for, I think it was 2 months. And then I was sent to California, where I was setting up another base for the Scouts and Raiders and the UDTs, which was Coronado Island, adjacent to the mainland there in San Diego. They got a bridge built over it now, built to the Silver Strand. Anyway, that was our home base, and we trained people there. I trained people in hand-to-hand combat, and I would get a lot of these karate boys that would tell me that they had a certain belt and everything, and they'd like to try me. Well, I said, first off, I'm going to tell you, I said, when you're in hand-to-hand combat, you got 10 seconds to live. I said, there's no contest. I said, you young people coming here thinking that you've got to give a contest. I said, there's no contest. You've got to get it done as quick as you can. At any rate, we went from there to, we was at Normandy, Sicily, Salerno, and then the South Pacific. I finally got stationed in the Solomon Islands at Cape Esperance. There's a little island there that was our base where we operated. We had the wooden plywood boats they call the PT boats. We had a couple of those there, and that's where we went on we'd go to the invading forces to the different islands. And this skipper that we had, he was a crazy man. He volunteered us wherever there was something going on. He volunteered us. See, but he finally made. I think he made admiral. He was fortunate to have lived so long. At any rate, I came back to the United States in 45, and that was after September 15th. And we trained the underwater demolition teams, and then they were trying to set up the SEALs at that particular time. And we trained a few of them, but they never got underway till the Vietnam conflict is when the SEALs was really put together. But I was in the Scouts and Raiders, but I was considered a frogman. You know that ugly frog they got with a helmet, you know. Most of us fit the picture. But now the code talking, the way we did this, we'd go in maybe 2 weeks, 3 weeks before any invasion, see. We were a bunch of sneaky fellows. We'd sneak in there and get the sounding, the fortifications, how many troops they had, and an estimate what we'd give them. And then we'd get back out in our rubber boat and paddle out to there a little bit, get away from their main guns, the machine guns, because they couldn't hit nothing with those big guns. What worried me was when we was working this, leading the troops in, and here's the battleships sending those 16 projectiles over us, over our heads, see? It says, and then just scare the living daylights out of you, you know. You could see them. But we would go in, and when we get out there far enough away, then I'd break radio silence. And I'd say, what kind of a blanket butt you got over there? And they'd say, well, we got a Choctaw. So I'd speak Choctaw to him. But usually they'd have a Lakota, you know, and I could speak to them pretty easy. But the Lakotas was, the Navajo, seems to have the claim on wind talkers. And I think they did a commendable job, but they was on land, see. And one fellow asked me, I thought there was just Navajos. I said, well, World War I, there was Lakota code talkers. But I said, we call ourselves, since we learned the language, I said, the English language, I said, I didn't call it code talkers or wind talkers, anything. I'm a communication expert. But the code talking wasn't nothing that was so spectacular. The work was spectacular. The work was hard. It was dangerous. You could get killed. And when the bullets would hit in the water and you'd be underneath there, you could see these bullets come. Like it's, you know, they were spent. They wasn't going to hurt you. But then at Normandy, the Germans put up steel girders like this that they set down in along with the coral reefs like this, so they would puncture the hulls of the landing craft. And we'd go in there and blow them up. Well, we used to take, it'd be 5 pounds of tetrol, which is a high volatile explosive. And we'd take that and put it in a kind of a rubber tube, and we'd swim with that, see? And maybe we'd have 15 pounds, 20 pounds. But I introduced a large rubber, like an inner tube, that was 20 feet long, and we put those 5-pound packages in them. And we had a hook on one end and a lanyard on this other end, and we'd go to those steel things and just make a circle with it. And we had the radio control ignition, see? And we'd set that off and blow those things up. Of course, we'd get a lot of opposition, you know. They didn't like that, the Germans. So they'd shoot at us. And when we was going to take them in, it was dark night. They always at night, you know. And over this one hump, there was no place for the ships or the troops to put a bearing on. So I suggested to the skipper, I said, I'll get out with a flashlight and swim ashore, and I'll get over here. And I said, oh, Bradford, this is my friend. I said, oh, Bradford, he says, you low down, dirty Indian. Don't you volunteer me. But he took a flashlight and he got in the water and swam ashore too. So he was sitting over there and I was over here. And I kept getting nervous that big gun was firing, you know. He'd come out of that and he'd go back in, see. And there was no bombardment near him. That was the safest place, so I got underneath that gun with that flashlight. The skipper said, old Buckaloo said, where you were signaling from, he said, was where that gun placement. We was trying to zero in on it. I'm sure glad you... I said, because that's where I was signaling, right underneath the gun. But I got 5 minutes, right? Yep. But at any rate, I started to tell you that I was 2 years old, And I was taken by the grandfathers and grandmothers. I was dedicated when I was, but just in my mother's womb. She dedicated me to them. And my name is Sibby, pronounced in English, but it's Sibby is what it is. But they pronounce it Sibby, so I'll go along with that. But that means helper of the people. At any rate, I left home, and I could go once in a while because their influence wouldn't have done me any good anyway, you know. But I got trained, and one little incident I'm going to tell you about. While most of you was learning one of the goose rhymes and all the nursery rhymes to go with that, I was 7 years old, and I was tasked to remove a tuft from the tail of a white-tailed deer. 7, going on 8. I studied on that a long time, you know, and finally I went to my grandpa. Well, he said, you just got to start living with them. He said, it may take you a month. It may take you 6 weeks. He said, but you got to start living with them, and they'll get used to it. He said, they won't. And he said, try to sleep with them. I did. About the 4th week, I was laying beside this doe. Well, I picked this old doe and I followed her around. See? And I'd lay beside her and I'd pull that hair like this, see? She'd just shake her. She'd get up and move to start with, but after a few nights, well, she'd just kind of shake her hide a little bit like she was shaking off flies. And so then, after about 4 weeks, I laid with my head down toward the tail, and that's where I was supposed to get that. So I pulled it a little bit, and she didn't. So I got my whole handful and pulled it out, see? And I put it in that, what we call the Watecha bag, around her neck, you know, in a little bag. I put it in there, and then I took some more. And when I got, they didn't believe it. They thought that I couldn't do that, the elders. And they built a big feast for me, and that's when I got my name, Wombly. That was eagle. And later on, after my vision quest, I got my grandfather's name, Mato Wombly. That's eagle bear. So that's my real name. LeBeau is just a name that the United States government give my grandpa when he put his butt in the Indian school, see, up at Fort Dix, North Dakota. They told him, there was an old Frenchman had a ferry that was pulled by horses across the Missouri, and his name was LeBeau. So they told my grandpa, they said, well, you have to cut your hair, for one thing, and you won't speak your language either. And since you come from the area where LeBeau's ferry is, that's going to be your name. So, of course, my dad, he got the name, and it was put on the rolls in Washington, D.C., where they keep all the Indians' names and stuff. And then mine got there, so my name is LeBeau. It's 1 o'clock.
Some questions that you'd want. Is there a question or two? Roger.
Sibby, how about some of your ancestors? I think you mentioned to another group I was with about your great-great-great-grandfather or somebody.
Yeah, my great-grandfather was Sitting Bull. It's funny because he had about 7 wives. He did. He was a rich man. I don't know how, but I see a few of them saying that they're distant relations, But my grandpa was his son, and he never talked much about his mother. I don't know whether he knew her or not. He had so many, And then on my mother's side was Charles Alexander Eastman. Was his angelicized name, but his name was Ohayesa, and he was very well educated. He got through Beloit College in Illinois. Then he went to Harvard, got his lawyer. He got a lawyership there. Then he went to Columbia and got his medical doctor. But he tried, to work with the government on the different agencies and everything. But he finally got, after many years, I understand his feelings because I've been many years at it myself. And I'm kind of in a retirement mood right now. See, I don't do too much. I speak at many colleges and high schools, and I go to all the prisons. Wherever there's an Indian incarcerated, I go there and talk to him. There was 65. Most of them was Indians. Probably about 45 was Indians. The rest was white and Mexicans. And I asked, show or raise a hand. I said, why you're incarcerated? I said, is it alcohol, drugs, what? I said, show of hands with alcohol. They were all raised. And I said, show of hands with drugs. And 90% of them raised their hand. So you see, these Indians they don't know how to handle their alcohol. They can't just take one drink. I never did drink. I tried it one time when I was in the Navy. These fellows made something concoction, torpedo juice they called it. It was the alcohol that run the torpedoes, and they put it through loaves of bread or something, to distill it. It made me. I thought I was going to die. I thought best that I die to get better. But after that, I didn't. I seen too many of my people destroyed by it. And if I was going to do my people any good, I couldn't absorb any of that, I didn't smoke, I didn't drink. I tried to do the best I could for my people. And I think that I did some good, because a lot of the prisoners now are out and doing good, and they all write to me, and so they're doing pretty good. I speak to different tribes and everything, but they're they're busy with their wine, you know. They like their wine. But it's devastating on those Indian reservations. You'll never know how bad it is. I've seen third world and fourth world feet in my travels around the world. But I've never seen, maybe it's because they are my people, is because it disturbs me so much. But they don't have nothing. They get a job, they might work a month, quickly they get a hold of some money, they go get some wine. They're not all that way. I mean, our reservation, my reservation is a little bit better. Most of the people there are good cattlemen. They're good ranchers, good farmers. And it helps, but there's still a large percentage of them that live out in the boondocks where the villages are, and where they get the wine, I don't know, but they get it. Well,
let's give Sibby a wonderful round of applause for a great presentation.
Yeah.
We'd like to present you with a Kiwanis pin, and just as a little reminder of our